A grenade is tossed into the entrance of a warehouse, instantly clearing out the zombies. Following this, a man and a woman enter, armed with submachine guns. As shell casings fall to the ground, zombies drop one by one. When their bullets run out, they draw long knives from their waists, charging in like war gods. Vasquez, facing the last zombie, grabs its neck with a dominant grip. Roberta, from behind, pierces the zombie's head. Vasquez's wide-open eyes seem to blame her for stealing his prey. Roberta, not to be outdone, glares back as if to say she's no less than a man. Neither of them would yield to the other, but as their bodies touched, the atmosphere became awkward. Roberta, refusing to be dominated, flips Vasquez onto a stretcher. Whatever Roberta does, she has to dominate. As Roberta kisses Vasquez, she suddenly senses something amiss. Looking down, she realizes it's not Vasquez but a zombie. Oh shit, it's a dream. Roberta looked at the hormonal Vasquez next to her and was mortified. Meanwhile, Team X continues their journey to California, detoured far by nuclear radiation. Licking her lips, Roberta, slightly embarrassed, takes the co-driver's seat and notices something in the distance.
What's that?
Doc said that this thing had appeared 2 hours ago, but it should just be normal sand and wind. It's not as unlucky as before to encounter zombies again. Relieved, Roberta asks Addie if the radio is fixed yet. Their priority is to contact Citizen Z for the exact location of the California lab. 10K immediately sets up the antenna on the car roof.
Northern Light, do you copy? Northern Light, this is Delta X-Ray Delta, do you copy?
Unbeknownst to them, the situation at the North Pole Station is dire. A few months ago, the base of the North Pole Station was destroyed and zombies kept pouring in. Citizen Z couldn't figure out how there were so many zombies.
That's right. I've been practicing.
After dealing with the zombies, he turns to hear Addie's call. Just as he's about to respond, another zombie suddenly pounces on him. Lacking experience and strength, he barely manages to push the zombie back and fires his weapon. Regaining his composure, Citizen Z rushes to the radio.
Citizen Z, keep reaching out, do you copy?
Holy crap, she's still alive.
Come on, Citizen Z, I know you're out there, you gotta be. Do you read me?
Addie, I hear you.
I copy you. It's me, Citizen Z. Man, it's great to hear your voice.
So good to hear your voice. Can't believe you're still alive.
How's the package?
He hates being called that. The name is Murphy.
The Murphy, thanks to you, blabbermouth.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to sick the whole world on you.
Yeah.
After a brief exchange, Addie gets to the point. Last time, Citizen Z was giving the coordinates of the California lab but got cut off. They urgently need the complete address. Citizen Z is frustrated as his place is in disarray, making it hard to find the paper with the coordinates. Just then, he stares in shock at a damaged screen showing a zombie horde approaching Team X's location. He advises Roberta to turn around and not head west anymore. Roberta takes out a telescope and looks into the dust. Sure enough, there's an endless horde of zombies, even larger and more terrifying than the last encounter.
That's not a tsunami. That's the end of the world.
It's really bad luck, but the real bad luck is still to come. Their vehicle suddenly broke down. Luckily, there were 2 off-road motorcycles by the road. They had to siphon gasoline from the RV into the motorcycles. The problem was, there were 6 of them, meaning 2 would have to proceed on foot. 10K and Doc volunteered bravely to climb to higher ground to avoid the zombie horde. Roberta didn't hesitate. In such a situation, they needed to stay calm. Finding a shelter and then coming back for 10K and Doc was the right choice. Thus, the 2 motorcycles turned and headed south. 10K and Doc exchanged glances. The distant zombie tide was getting closer, the ground seeming to tremble. They decided to hide on a distant mountain peak. Half an hour later, Roberta and the others arrived at a tall building. They had planned to take shelter there, but didn't expect it to be occupied.
Hold it right there! This is tribal land! No visitors allowed!
Our vehicle broke down a ways back. We were hoping for a little shelter from the horde of zombies that's coming.
Can't help you. You gotta turn around and go back the way you came.
Yat A!
Roberta tried to negotiate. She stepped out of the vehicle, hands raised to show no harm. Then, she pulled out a pair of binoculars and said, "Sorry to disturb you, we're outsiders, and it's normal for you to be wary of strangers, but you have to trust your eyes. There's indeed a massive, terrifying horde of zombies coming." The man, half doubting, took the binoculars and looked into the distance. Indeed, there was a vast cloud of dust rolling in, seemingly devouring the land. The man's face grew serious. This was beyond his decision-making authority, so he took Team X to see the leader. The first floor of the building, which appeared to be a former entertainment venue, was filled with arcade machines. The tribe was primarily Native American, and Danny, the leader, wore glasses. Danny is a very approachable person, but since the newcomers are strangers, he still keeps a handgun at his waist as a precaution.
Welcome to Northern Quest Casino Resort. My name is Chief Danny Firecloud.
After meeting, Roberta briefly described the situation outside. Originally, she had intended to stay and take shelter, but looking at the approaching zombie horde from this angle, the building might be crushed. So, she advised Danny to evacuate his people, as staying would be a dead end. But Danny wouldn't leave just based on someone else's words. He believed his defensive fortifications could withstand the zombies, as this wasn't the first such incident. Besides, this was his home. If he was going to die, he was going to die here. Roberta, hearing this, didn't insist further.
Just hope they don't run into my son.
Why, what's wrong with your son?
Without a vehicle, Doc and 10K walked for half an hour to the foot of a mountain, where they spotted a perfect refuge. 10 minutes later, they reached the top of the mountain with difficulty. 10K looked back to see a vast canyon, feeling insignificant before nature's grandeur. As they marveled, a noise came from behind, and a figure darted past. Could it be a zombie? But then, a rope flew from the sky, wrapping around Doc's legs. Doc was knocked unconscious. Before 10K could react, he too was ambushed and felt weak all over. 10K turned to see his attacker, a tall man on horseback. There's no doubt that the two of them have become prisoners. The man was Danny's son, Red Hawk. Due to a conflict, father and son led separate parts of the tribe. This mountain was sacred to their Native American tribe. They captured 10K and Doc partly because they trespassed and partly because Red Hawk deeply disliked white people. Red Hawk believed they carried a virus.
I'm only gonna ask you one more time. What are you doing on tribal land? You're trespassing on sacred ground.
We didn't know anything about it being sacred anything.
We were trying to get away from a zombie mega horde which is headed straight this way, whether you believe us or not.
Your trespassing is the only thing that would lead them to us.
Lead them to you? Have you seen that massive crowd of brain-eating ghouls? Ain't nobody leading that. All we're trying to do is get out of its way, and you people should too.
Leave our land again? Never. I will die here.
His reasoning was quite irrational. He told his people that zombies only ate white people and even prepared to kill 10K. Then, a voice stopped him.
Gordon, you've got to give this Indigo bullshit a rest.
You know I don't go by that name anymore.
It was Ayala, Red Hawk's sister, who opposed her brother's violent behavior. After an argument, Ayala took 10K and Doc to the medical room, a makeshift facility.
Where are you taking them?
To the infirmary.
Kurak, the tribe's shaman, tended to Doc's wounds.
You wouldn't happen to have anything for the pain, would you?
Pain management happens to be my specialty. Follow me.
10K, as usual, was attracted to the beautiful woman. Ayala explained that her brother, far from being unreasonable, was a university professor before the apocalypse. Red Hawk was only acting rudely because he didn't want his people to interact with the outside world. As they talked about life and interests, they surprisingly got along well. 10K was smitten, feeling like he was in love.
You always stare so much.
Only when I'm really interested in what somebody's saying.
Meanwhile, Kurak gave Doc a marijuana-like herb for pain, causing him to feel light and hallucinate. Kurak also introduced Doc to the tribe's sacred wall, explaining that each symbol represents an ancestor who imparts medical knowledge to her every day. Most would find it fanciful, but Doc took it seriously.
I don't know how, but I swear I understand every word they're saying. Can't believe my ancestors were such boneheads.
5 minutes later, Doc excitedly ran back to find 10K. Before he could finish, the tribe's men rushed up and detained them. Red Hawk told his sister that outsiders were not welcome. Now that their injuries were treated, they should leave, as staying would harm the tribe. Thus, they were escorted out of the tribe. Red Hawk had no intention of letting them go. That would leave a risk. He hung 10K and Doc up as an alarm system. Their screams would alert the tribe if zombies approached.
Look, you and I both know what happens if I let you go. You'll find your party, and then turn around and come right after me and my family.
No, we wouldn't.
Yes, you would, and so would I. Besides, if I am wrong, it doesn't really matter, does it? We're all gonna die anyway.